Sly James heads up Kansas City government. In Wyandotte County, it's Mark Holland. In Jackson County, it's Mike Sanders. And for the last 4 years, Johnson County has been led by this man, Ed Eilert. Now he's seeking re-election. But does he deserve 4 more years in office? He's drawn 2 opponents who are challenging him to lead what has been the Metro's economic powerhouse. With less than 2 weeks to go before primary election day, we debate the issues in Johnson County with the 3 candidates wanting your vote. Hello, I'm Nick Haynes, and thank you for joining us again. We continue in election mode this week. Last week, we debated the Missouri transportation tax with proponents and opponents of that measure. Next week, we tackle the streetcar expansion in Kansas City. But this half hour, we're heading over to the Kansas side of state line, where we're asking who should lead Johnson County. On August 5th, you'll get to narrow down the choices by selecting the top 2 candidates you want to advance to the general election. Will one of those candidates be Ed Eilert, the former mayor of Overland Park who has led the Johnson County government for the past 4 years? Will it be another Ed Peterson, one of the 7 members of the Johnson County Commission, a post he's held for more than a decade? He's a former mayor of Fairway. Or could you choose someone outside of Johnson County government, former state legislator Patricia Leitner, who represented parts of Olathe in the Kansas House for 3 terms and challenged Kevin Yoder for the GOP nomination for Congress in 2010. She's now a compliance auditor for the Kansas Securities Commission, an independent state agency that protects Kansas investors. We thank you all for being with us. Ed Eilert, with the utmost of respect, though, what have you done for the last 4 years for Johnson County voters?
I was elected to county chair in the election of 2010 and sworn into office in January of 11. One of the biggest challenges we faced in Johnson County is the Great Recession and the aftermath of that Great Recession. We took that as an opportunity to restructure county government. We've created some efficiencies by merging departments. We have used attrition and an early voluntary retirement program to reduce our workforce by about 10%. That would be about 400 employees. In that process, we did not raise property taxes, and that was a conscious decision that was made by myself and the commission. Because of that, we have saved taxpayers about $40 to $45 billion in the last 3 or 4 years. We have maintained our AAA bond rating, our finances are sound, and our economy is beginning to really get some legs and grow.
So with all of that, why did you get into this race, Ed Peterson?
Nick, that was not a decision taken lightly. As discussed earlier here, the approach that's been taken by county government over the last several years, actually longer than just 4, has been a commitment to no increase in revenues. The way we have approached dealing with that is a reduction in expenditures, a reduction in staff, and in essence, we put ourselves in a position where we're standing still. And by standing still, we're falling behind. That's why I'm accepting the challenge of this election. I believe it's time to move our county forward.
Okay, now with 1 opponent already, why did you think that Ed Eilert needed a second opponent, and you got into the race as well, Patricia Leitner?
Well, Nick, it basically came down to this. When I look at county government and the things that have gone on, and the county has been running pretty smoothly, especially during these hard times. But even though there hasn't been taxes raised, we still have had tax increases in our property values. So that has been a tax increase on the county. But most importantly, I'm running because I want to lead the county to be more responsible and more effective with our tax dollars. And I'll give you for instance, the King Louis building. We've wasted a number of millions on that building. It's still sitting there. It had no defined purpose. Both my opponents voted for the purchase of it. There was some cronyism involved, and I want to stop that kind of government spending and waste.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. 3 years ago, Johnson County government spent millions to buy what was considered an icon in the county, the King Louis Bowling Alley on Metcalf. There were grand visions at the time of turning it into a National Museum of Suburbia. 3 years on and $3.6 million later, plans for the Suburbia Museum have died, and more modest proposals to bring the Johnson County Museum and some other county agencies to the building are also on hold as the County Commission balks at the more than $10 million cost involved in remodeling the building. So is it time to admit buying King Louis was a mistake? Should the county now sell the building, bite the bullet and remodel it, or mothball the project in hopes of rosier economic times ahead, Ed Eilert?
No, I don't think we should do that. And in fact, the building was not purchased to support the concept of the Museum of Suburbia. The building was purchased in order to relocate the current historic museum. The current museum building, parts of it were built back in the 1920s. We spent $1.95 million to purchase that building and the 5 acres that it sits on. We have invested about $1.3 million at this point in time additionally to make the building sound and to put it in finish readiness. The Historic Museum still needs a new location. They need to be in a position where they can raise some private dollars to support their activities. We need a permanent advanced voting location. We need new facilities for the Enterprise Center of Johnson County. They currently pay $250,000 a year in rent. That's about half of the county support they receive. And in about 7 or 8 years, you could pay for the entire building just from the rent savings. Parks and Rec, Library, and the museum are discussing ways that they can do some joint programming. And so this facility can become a focus point for historic activities, business development activities, as well as supporting the libraries and the parks.
So what happens now, though? There was no vote, there was a refusal to vote for $10 million in bonds to remodel the building. So what would happen at this point in time? Nothing is happening there.
No, the vote was for $5 million to put the building in finish for the Historic Museum. The other thing that's happening along Metcalf is there are plans for private redevelopment. And I think there may be some opportunities for the city to work, or the county, to work with some of those private developers and see if there aren't some private-public partnerships that can be utilized.
Okay, Ed Peterson, what do you think should happen to that building?
Well, it certainly is one of the more controversial issues of the campaign, and I'm asked frequently what to do about the situation. I'm concerned about the museum. It does need a new home, and I think the King Louis property offers an opportunity to combine an architectural icon with a need that we have to relocate the museum, and it would be a great location with high visibility for the museum. I would prefer focusing on creative and entrepreneurial types of activities for the remainder of the facility's use. The Entrepreneurial Center would be one possibility. I think our Arts Council would be another possibility, perhaps theater in the park.
But you do believe that the county should keep hold of the building at this point?
I think we need to move forward with this project. I've certainly learned that when government invests in this kind of a project, it needs to have a plan before it moves.
Patricia Leitner, do you think the county should sell it at this point?
Well, Nick, when the building was purchased, the best of my knowledge of everything I reviewed, there really was no defined purpose for it, and that was a colossal mistake right there. The building was to be condemned by Overland Park right about the time, and the board knew that about the time the board purchased it, and that's why it was purchased. It was to help out some friends. The building is still sitting there. It's not even part of the 2015 budget at this time. So we need to look at all the costs that would be involved. Should we keep it? If we can, what would it cost to remodel it, rehab it? It does have some environmental problems. If not, if we sell it, what could we get for it? Or would we need to just tear it down and just sell vacant land and then maybe move on to something else? Now, I know of a developer that has approached me and said, hey, you know what I would do? I'd help you out with that, and I would switch that property with you for another property located where it would be possibly, you know, in an area that might be more convenient for people or whatever, but an empty piece of land. And I'd take that building off your hands, and so we wouldn't have to deal with those costs.
Now, Ed Eilert?
Excuse me, I must respectfully disagree with some of the information that's been stated. For 2 years, the Historic Museum looked for a location for a new facility. They rejected this one at one time because of the price. And when the price came down, that's when they suggested that the county buy it for the Historic Museum use. There are no environmental problems with the facility. And as far as I know, in my conversations with the city, there was no intent to condemn the building. That's somebody's imagination. So let's talk about it with the accurate background and information.
Now, according to former Johnson County Sun Publications chairman, now Kansas City Star columnist Steve Rose, the big wedge issue in this race is not now what to do with the King Louis bowling alley. It's how to deal with a $49 million hole. That hole brought about by the Kansas legislature, which just eliminated the mortgage registration fee, something you may not be aware of, but it's been in effect since 1925. And you pay it every time you buy a home, and counties get the money. Not any longer. State lawmakers complained it was a hidden tax and abolished it. That's estimated to cost Johnson County alone $49 million over the next 5 years. So how does the county plug that hole? Raise taxes? Cut services, Ed Peterson?
Well, first of all, I would support a constitutional challenge to that law. It is a bill that was passed without discussion of major provisions in each of the House and Senate. It's a bill that includes controversial provisions that are unrelated to the original purpose of the bill. I think we should mount a legal challenge. I believe this is indicative of the regressive policies that have been coming out of Topeka directed at Johnson County. It's time for a legal challenge.
Well, you were in the Kansas legislature for several years. I mean, would you have voted to get rid of this mortgage registration fee, Patricia Leighton?
Absolutely,
a lot of people said
Nick,
it was a hidden tax.
This is a tax, a bill, a law that had to be abolished. And I'll tell you why. When that law was put into place in the 1920s, it was a user fee. It was for the purpose of when you had to register after a mortgage was put in place, they had these big books, and that took a lot of manpower. Well, those books don't exist anymore. Everything's computerized. You don't have that cost, and it wasn't being used as a user fee. Instead, it was being used into the general fund for the county to spend as wished instead of its intended purpose. So I would have supported the mortgage registration tax, absolutely. It was unfair to people who had to purchase their homes with a mortgage as opposed to the wealthy who can afford it, the corporations who are buying up homes for rental houses, and also the farmers were exempt from it. So whether or not there's a $49 million hole, that's the contention. The Kansas Legislative Budget Office has stated when they analyzed the numbers, they said Johnson County would maybe lose $1.7 million, for instance, in the year 2015. Why? Because when they abolished that bill, they also put into place that you could charge a document fee, and I'm sure we will take advantage of that in charging that document fee, which will take up a big
$49 million is coming from the county manager's
Well,
office.
He's looking over a few years, and you know what? If we can't absorb $1.7 million, for instance, in a one-year budget, Johnson County, with all the millions we bring in, then I'm going to continue to argue that I could run the government more efficiently and effectively.
Okay. Ed Eilert?
The $1.7 million is inaccurate, and we have presented information to the legislature showing that it is inaccurate. The first year will be about $3.25 million. The second year, it exceeds $7 million. And when you look at the cumulative effect, it is $48 million. So that means $48 million comes out of the revenue side of the county's budget. Going back to its initiation in 1925, one of the reasons it was put in place by the legislature was to alleviate pressure on the property taxes at local government. And now the legislature has done just the opposite. They've gone away from that original premise, and now they want the property taxes to be the revenue source for local government. And based upon their actions, it's going to be very, very difficult to manage county resources and not have an impact on property taxpayers. The real losers in this decision was those who have already paid the property tax, who do not, the mortgage registration fee, who do not have a mortgage, and now they're going to be asked to pay again by the state legislature. So it will have a significant impact. The legal option is one option, but I think it's maybe winning the battle, losing the war. Because if it is declared unconstitutional, the legislature just needs to do it over again, and it's right back with us.
Johnson County is viewed of as an economic powerhouse, but it also facing problems that it hasn't had to face before. One is the issue of suburban poverty. The total number of county residents living at or below the federal poverty level has doubled since 2000. The rate of students eligible for free or reduced lunches has been soaring and indicated that more families are living on the edge. And homelessness is increasing. The Olathe School District reporting more than 400 homeless students last school year, an increase of almost 500% since 2007. As head of Johnson County government, what power do you have to improve the situation for these families, Ed Peterson?
This is certainly a growing concern. It's a hidden problem in suburbs across the county or the country. I believe that the county, first of all, needs to enhance the services that it already provides to these citizens. We're engaged in housing, food, public health services for these individuals. Most of these people are people who are experiencing the problem for the first time. If we can find a path out for them, they're motivated, they're willing to pursue that, and they can be helped. We have to find ways to enhance education, enhance child care and early child care for these families. And I think by providing them a path, they'll accept it. We need to work toward that.
Ed Eilert.
Well, you know, we would all like to be able to wave a wand and the issue would go away. Obviously, it's not. You know, some of the poverty is there because of health issues. Or disability issues, or lack of education issues, or lack of training in order to secure jobs that are available in today's marketplace. The county does have a wide network of support, and we have 6 multi-service centers across the county which provide that kind of support, whether it's a food pantry or financial counseling or referral to other agencies within the county that can provide assistance. Those short-term measures need to continue because they are very, very important. Longer term, I think we need to continue to invest in our public health system, in our mental health system, providing services for those with intellectual and developmentally delayed disabilities, and also provide for our aging population. But I think one thing that can be done in the education area is to involve the stakeholders. We have some outstanding technical programs in our high school systems in the county that can provide marketable skills to young people, even if they don't choose to go to college. And I think that's one avenue that can make a major difference. The community college has some excellent programs in gaining certifications that can enhance your job gaining opportunities. And I think those are all long-term issues that we need to continue to support.
Patricia Leitner.
Johnson County is not unique to the problems, of course, of this growing surge of poverty. And one of the greatest things the county can do, because the county can't create jobs in the sense of per se by government, but the county can create an economic environment that's inviting to growing jobs, to growing the economy. We do that by keeping taxes low so that seniors can afford to stay in their homes, so that businesses can afford to expand their businesses, hire more employees, maybe even entice other businesses to move into Johnson County. We need to loosen government regulations and allow businesses a little easier time at being able to establish new businesses. We need to provide entrepreneurship opportunities and programs and so on and so forth that we can help make sure that people have access to. I mean, there's a whole myriad of things that the county can do, and all along keep providing those social services that are going to be so needed for probably a while to come.
On August 5th, voters in Kansas City will be deciding streetcar expansion. At that same election, they'll be deciding a Missouri transportation tax that will help not only fund streetcars, but a new Rapid Max bus line on Prospect Avenue. In Johnson County, transit is going through tougher times. We've seen headlines in the Kansas City Star about how Johnson County Transit has proposed eliminating 8 bus routes and considered reducing or modifying service on 9 others. Why is that happening when the county's population is growing and ridership apparently is supposed to be going up, Ed Eilert?
Well, I think you need to dig through the ridership numbers before you come to a universal conclusion. And by that I mean probably the most successful route we have is what we call the K-10 connector, which runs from Lawrence to KU Edwards to the community college and back to Lawrence. That's where most of our growth is coming from when you look at those ridership numbers. When you look at the other routes, the ridership just isn't there at the level that we need to encourage expansion. Federal funds are less, state funding is less. We have worked with the city of Lawrence, and I've had conversations with those officials as well as our staff. We're going to receive some funding from the city of Lawrence to support the K-10 connector. But if you look at the money that's been invested, I think $10 million of federal funds on what we call the Metcalf, Shawnee Mission service routes. Those routes are still not performing. And that's the simple problem, is that the bus system in Johnson County has not been supported by the population. We do have some rider service, no question about it. But if we just had more people riding the bus, the funding would be there to expand.
So I could take it then, if you're re-elected, Ed Eilert, we also won't be seeing a streetcar expansion into Johnson County in the next 4 years?
No streetcars, but what we do need to do, I mentioned the redevelopment, and we do need to work with the private sector. As redevelopment occurs along these routes, most redevelopment receives some kind of tax benefit, whether it's a CID, a TIF, or some type of property tax abatement. And my suggestion we are exploring is that some of that benefit be returned to the public transit system.
Patricia Leitner.
The buses are empty. It's just that simple. And the bus transportation is one of the items that I feel has been a waste and would be something that I would have reviewed, independently audited, figured out if there are any routes other than the K-10 connector, which I see does have some ridership, any routes that are valid enough to hang on to, and if not, redirect those monies in some other way, because we're just wasting county taxpayer dollars is what we're doing with something like that.
Ed Peterson.
Public transportation is the infrastructure of the 21st century. We have to expand the system that we have. We're a community of 560,000 people. Many of them need better public transportation and will benefit from that. Employers will benefit from this. Educators will benefit from this. In the past, we have seen when we invested more money and expanded the routes, we had an increase in ridership of 15 to 17%. We have reduced and retreated from a plan that was in place to continue expansion of bus transit. We need to go back to that plan. We need to continue to expand. This is a critical priority for our county, and if elected chairman, once elected chairman, I would put that at the highest part of our agenda.
But we just heard from your opponents we need to dig into the ridership numbers, and oftentimes these buses are empty.
A lot of the buses that you see empty are on a back run to the barn to be serviced after they've completed their service for the day, and that creates a misperception. Many of the buses ride during peak times with half or more ridership within the buses. Just look at the actual numbers of people using the service. When we've made investments and expanded the routes and numbers of routes, there has been an increase in ridership.
Ed Eilert.
You know, a couple of things. My focus has been to direct the Transit Council and transit staff to look outside the box, if you will, of delivering public transit services. And the other day, in fact, Mr. Peterson seconded the motion to increase funding for public transit by $1 million, with some maybe opportunity to get $500,000 back, to serve nights and weekends on Metcalf. People are not riding the bus in large enough volumes during the day to expand at nights and weekends. I asked the staff, I said, how many routes are running on Metcalf? They couldn't answer. I said, have you done a market study to see how many people are receptive to this kind of transportation? The answer was no. An example of moving away from the traditional approach to public transit is what we did in the special needs transportation area. Instead of running our own buses, we contract with 1010 Taxi. And in the first year, we're going to save $500,000 of taxpayer dollars and running the same efficient service. So there are ways to do things differently than just more money, more buses, and they will come.
Okay, we've heard different views from you during this half hour on the issues. Ed Peterson, what separates you from your two opponents?
The critical message of my campaign is that the county for several years has become stagnant, it's standing still, and consequently we're falling behind. I believe it's time for us to begin to move the county forward. Our fathers, mothers, grandparents in the past recognized challenges, stepped up and met those challenges. That's why we have the great community that we do today. It's our turn.
And the thing that separates you, Patricia Leitner?
You said it right off the bat, Nick. I'm not part of the establishment, but I do come with a background in government affairs. And so I would be the one that would lead the county to be more conservative fiscally, would look more to get rid of the waste, economic development in ways that the county can do things, and hopefully we would work towards setting the government on a path that is more open and transparent. And one thing we haven't talked about, by the way, is the public safety issue. I would ensure that public safety is funded adequately, as well as I would make sure that the sheriff stayed independent and autonomous and elected by the people.
And what separates you, Ed Eilert, from your two challenges?
I think all you have to do is look at the data, look at the performance of the last 3-4 years. And some of that data says this. Our unemployment rate in Johnson County is 4.3%. In the metro area, it's like 6.2%. We have, at the end of 2013, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, more people working than we did before the recession. And if you look at the metro area, in 2013, Johnson County saw an increase in jobs of 9,800. In the entire Kansas City MSA area, there was only 2,600 increase. Without Johnson County, as you've indicated earlier, we are a major part of the economic engine for the metro area. My commitment is to continue excellence, building a community of opportunity.
And that's all we have time for. You've been hearing from the three candidates wanting to lead Johnson County for the next 4 years as county chair. The top two vote getters on August 5th will advance to the general election. Will it be current office holder Ed Eilert or Ed Peterson or Patricia Leitner? That's up to you to decide on August 5th. Next week on this program, we debate the streetcar expansion in Kansas City on this program with proponents and opponents. Join us for that. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.